Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here with this week's review. Dalton, what are we reviewing this week? You good?
Yeah. Okay, this is October, so we are continuing forward with a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe today. This is a short story that a lot of people are going to be familiar with. Everybody reads this in high school. This is The Masque of the Red Death. Yeah. Good things, bad things?
3 good things. 1, there is not a moment to breathe in this short story.
Okay.
2, I think this short story is very rich in literature, and I think we can get there. 3, you were never in doubt that this does not end well.
Okay.
But it being given away so early does not hinder your reading experience, I don't think.
Okay. This contains all 3 elements of horror as described by Stephen King. We got into that a little bit with the last poem. I think people really enjoyed that. But this does pass the test as well. The monster here may not be a monster, but more of a reality, which makes it all the more terrifying. And the imagery in this work is actually just wonderful. Especially when we're getting into the description of the 7 rooms and whatnot. Bad things.
1, this short story is too short to have any real investment in character.
Okay.
2, again, the falling action is oh so stupid fast. And 3, there are only 2 actual characters, and one of them is only manifested for about 7 paragraphs.
Okay.
So all my criticisms sort of revolve around the same thing, and I think we'll get into that later.
Okay. As with a lot of Poe, this climaxes and then abruptly ends.
Falls asleep, if you will. Right?
Yeah. A lot of words in this work just seem wasted. They just seem schluffed in.
Okay.
I'm sure you're going to argue that with me. And if read literally, this seems absolutely ridiculous. A guy showed up dressed as death and then everybody died.
Okay.
You've got to interpret it.
Right.
So, where would you like to begin with this?
Pick
Do
a
you have
quote.
some quotes?
Yeah.
I do. Go ahead with yours, because I'm going to have to find my page.
There were delirious fancies, such as the madman fashions. There were much of the beautiful, much of the wanton, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. I thought that was the rhythm there. I thought was extremely pleasing.
There are chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion. And I also have another short one that I think is just beautiful because it sums up reality. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think.
I think there's a lot of that sort of stuff in here.
This is a very quotable piece. There are some good lines in here.
And I think that here is the danger with a piece like this, is that with some of the messages that this is trying to convey, and it does convey, it was meant to convey those messages. It is trying to convey those messages, so it feels a bit from time to time like propaganda, as opposed to literature, right?
Okay.
Literature is open to interpretation. Propaganda says, this is what you need to get out of this.
Okay. Now, I do think this does beautifully capture kind of like a class and human nature comment here. Because this is clearly a comment on, pestilence and whatnot. This could be attributed also to the Black Plague, something like that. But this is very true. In the events like this, this is the wealthy shelling themselves up and saying, oh, we're fine, this can't touch us because we're rich, we're wealthy. They isolate themselves from the outside world and basically just indulge in a little bit of hedonism. But truth, pushes, and disease is unstoppable.
I think that this transcends disease.
You think so?
Yeah, I think this is just about death.
You think?
Where's the Where's the red room?
Where's the red room?
The red room. The bad room. Where's the red room?
Is it the 6th room?
It's the west.
Is it the west?
Where's the sunset?
Sunset's in the west.
What is a prevailing classical symbol of dying?
The setting.
Sun going down.
Yeah.
Setting of the sun, right? We all fear the hours of the passing day. Give me a minute.
Okay. But if you look at this from like a modern standpoint, this seems very accurate. had a plague of some sort be sweeping the nation, this does seem like this could happen. If you look out to Orange County, they're just going to ignore it because they're fine, because it can't touch us.
Right.
Which I seem... that adds to the realism of this piece, and the argument that the quote-unquote monster in this piece is not a monster. It's more representation, like you said, death.
But it is not, as obvious in the piece, just death from plague. One of the things is when the bell rings, do you remember the clock? Dong, dong, the bell tolls, right?
Yes.
The bell tolls. And what does everyone do when the bell tolls? Everyone in the party freezes because that clock is so unnerving, right?
Yes.
Even the people playing music stop and clinch up, right? We've got that scene where everyone stops and everyone's nervous and everyone's looking around because the clock is that unnerving. What is another classical symbol for death? The bell tolling.
Yes.
The hour turning. It is the end of days. It is the end of hours. So when that bell tolls, everyone gets nervous because someone has died. That could have been me, right? No one's dying in the piece, but the hour has passed.
Yes.
And later on...
and I do believe the clock actually chimes midnight at 12. So this is literally the end of day.
The end of day.
Okay.
And then later on, right after my quote, you have... to and fro in the seven chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams. And these dreams writhed in and about, taking hue from the rooms and causing wild music of the orchestra to seem as an echo in their steps. And anon there were strikes the ebony clock which stands in the hall of the velvet. And then for a moment all is still and all is silent, save the voice of the clock. The dreams are stiff frozen as they stand, but the echoes of the chime die away, and they have endured but an instant. And a light, half-subdued laughter floats after them as they depart, and now again the music swells. So once the death knell stops,
Yes.
and we have shared that moment of reverence that we do at a funeral, the gaiety ensues.
Yes. World picks back up.
It's not just the world picking back up, but the gaiety ensues in light of death.
Okay.
Right? And what is this? This is a party thrown in the face of death.
Yes.
And that is where the danger comes from, right? We get this sense. That our Prince Prospero deserves what is coming, because we get the line in the second paragraph, but the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious.
Okay.
Sagacious, right? So this comes directly after the description of what the Red Death does to you.
Yes. And I think it is interesting to talk about the concept of you literally can't stop death. There is a scene right before Prospero dies that he is charging death with a dagger. And that is a very humanistic thing to do, is to go in guns blazing, nothing can stop me, I am immortal, I am Prince Prospero, and then he drops dead.
Yeah.
There is no stopping this is coming for you, no matter what you do, no mortal instrument is going to be able to keep you from succumbing to death.
And if I am not mistaken, this would have been the same time period where if you had, for example, a terrible fever, they would bleed you. Because they thought that your blood was running hot. Get some of it out of there, take the temperature down.
Logic.
So you're attacking that disease with a knife, right?
Okay.
You're charging head in with your medicine.
And you have to realize, when reading this, you've got to look at it at the time period. This is not, I got sick, so I went to CVS and got some, cold pills and slept it off for a couple days. If you get sick, you are probably in bad shape.
You're in trouble.
You are in trouble. That is a bad thing to be sick at this period in time. And this is, the entire city is just dropping left and right.
Right.
And it's unexplainable. It's scary. There is nothing that they can do about it. It is literally waiting around to die.
Yeah.
Which is a horrifying concept.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in today's world, right?
Yes.
Where we think we have such a grasp on everything. On everything.
And if you look at the idea of a plague happening again, even in today's day and age with modern medicine and modern science, hey, all it takes is some odd strain of something that's unusual, that can't be taken out with modern medicine, If it hits fast, it's going to take a lot of people with it.
That's where all the zombie fiction comes from.
There you
right?
go. This is it's modern science fiction right here.
What else did you have?
I would like to talk a little bit about the three elements from King's description of horror, because we talked about that a little bit with what's that last Poe that we read? The Telltale Heart. And a lot of people were really interested in that. And this does have all three of those elements, I think, even better exemplified through this piece. King said that there are three elements to make a good story. You need the terror, which is the best, the horror, which is acceptable, and you got the Hollywood, the gruesome, whatever, the gore, the shock, which is a lesser tool, but it is used to engage the reader immediately.
You want to attack on all three levels.
Yes, we have all three of these here. The terror of waiting around to die. The terror of the unknown, the pestilence, the disease, the fear that which cannot be seen. That which cannot be seen. That is the terror. That is the ultimate fear. That is wonderful, and that is in this piece. But you also have horror, because you have the physical embodiment of the stranger showing up at the Masque, at the party. That is the monster, if you will. The physical embodiment of fear, and that's acceptable in a horror piece. But you also have the grotesque. The descriptions of what the Red Death do to you. The fact that the decor here is, very morbid, very macabre. That is the pop. The cheap sell. So this does pass Stephen King's test, which would make it an acceptable piece in this genre. And I think it does it well. It does it even better than A Telltale Heart. So kudos to Poe, even though I didn't really enjoy this story very much. Good for him.
I don't think you're giving this proper credits.
You always say I never give it proper credit.
I think you're too quick to write things off sometimes.
You think so?
I have a question about this piece.
Okay.
We have a very curious line. And that line reads as such. In an assembly of such phantasms, such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. Let me read that one more time. In an assembly of phantasms, such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. You picking up what I'm laying down there?
What are you going for?
No idea there?
What are you going for?
Who's I?
Who is I?
Who is the story? An I is directly implicated in this piece.
Okay.
Everyone here died.
Correct. So is the speaker of this the character who is arriving?
Yeah, that's one of the questions I have. The speaker implicates an I in the piece, so we are left to assume that this is a storyteller that would have no inside knowledge of the event, an unreliable narrator, or B, the Red Death. After all, many times in this piece, when the Red Death appears, it is the Red Death. It has quotation marks on it.
Okay.
As if someone were being a bit facetious with how they have been represented, right?
Okay. All right.
And there is a great tradition of victors assuming the title of that which they have Yankee Doodle, right?
Yeah.
We're Yankees. Yankee Doodle went to town,
yes.
Right? So whenever we defeated the British, we would play that song.
Yes. But even if we're getting at this line of work here, serial killers who have been named by the public usually embody their name. Zodiac Killer, things like that.
Right.
So what you're saying here is the character who is, quote, the Red Death is actually a speaker here.
I don't know. Maybe.
It's possible
Or
because...
it's an unreliable narrator, right?
Well, it does say that everyone is dead.
Everyone dies.
But it does not comment on the stranger who arrived.
Right.
So, that does change things.
Does that change things from your reading?
It does change the reading very much if we are reading through the eyes of the intruder.
Red Death.
Of the Red Death. But in that same sense, the Red Death could be anyone. The Red Death is not someone who chose to be the Red Death.
What do you mean?
I mean, when I'm reading this, all I see is plague and pestilence. This is not someone who's coming in slasher style and just, forging a massacre at this party.
Right.
This is someone who cannot control what has happened to them. Now, if you want to go to a more fantastic, magical element, maybe this is something along the horror genre. This is some uncontrollable power, demonic force, whatever. But that seems a little cliche.
Would it have been cliche in the 1860s?
No, but
those cliches always start somewhere, man.
They do start somewhere.
And this is so... Look, we've got... In my collection, this short story is a mere 4 pages. 4 pages and 4 lines long.
Yes.
This implication of the eye comes in the middle, very middle of the story.
Okay.
And it's just one mention.
Okay.
There's one singular eye, as far as I can tell. Once I noticed that, I, in fairness, did not go back and check.
Okay.
So perhaps there are more.
Now, because Adrian is the expert of reading everything
Very closely,
and more in depth than anyone is humanly possible of doing.
Too close, some have said.
The descriptions of the rooms. It's beautiful imagery when he's describing the party. 7 rooms, all of different colors. So Dalton takes his little note, says 7 rooms, colors, numbers, colors. Adrian's going to say something here. What is your interpretation of that? Because I did not come up with anything that I felt comfortable with.
Okay, we'll go through your list. Did you list them?
No, I can pull them up. It's like literally one... Oh, I'm sorry. I knocked over the silence. It is literally maybe 2 paragraphs.
Knocked over the silence as he's speaking so loudly.
I knocked over the silence. It is like 2 paragraphs where the narrator of this describes every single room in great detail. Talk about something for a second until I can find it.
I don't know if it's necessarily great detail. I think that they're mentioning colors and mentioning numbers. There's always going to be something to look at. I did not take notes necessarily on these with this reading. It's something that I had noticed. I would like to get back to.
It's one of those things that I note now, because I know you're going to say something about it. So I'm like, be prepared to just defend something here. But I sit down, I'm like, what the hell does this mean? And I can't come up to it. But first, let me tell of the rooms in which it was held. There were 7, an imperial suite, and many palaces, however, such suites from a long, straight vista, while the folding doors slide back nearly to the walls on either hand, blah, blah, blah. Try to find it here. To the right and left, in the middle of each wall, a tall, narrow Gothic window looked out upon a close corridor which pursues the winding of the suites. The windows were stained glass. That at the eastern extremity was hung, for example, in blue. In vividly blue were the windows. Okay, the second chamber was purple.
The east.
Yes.
The day is beginning in the blue, right?
Okay.
The day is young. Everything is bright and sunny.
Okay. And then maybe this is the passing of a day. The second chamber was purple in ornaments and tapestries, and here the panes were purple. The third was green throughout, and so were the casements. The fourth was furnished with lighted with orange, the fifth with white, the sixth with violet, and the 7th apartment was closely shrouded in black velvet tapestry.
Black velvet tapestry, but I believe the windows are red.
That hung over the ceiling, the walls falling in heavy folds upon a carpet of the same material and hue, but in this chamber only the color of the windows failed to correspond with the decorations. The panes here were scarlet.
Yes, so obviously scarlet being a reference to blood, but one thing that stands out as well that did not happen in that paragraph, but I think, or did not happen in that snippet, but I think happens later in that paragraph, is the mention that they never really go into that 7th room.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So anytime you see the number 7, you have to be suspicious. What is 7? 7 is the number of God, right? So if they never go into that 7th room, however, how are they living?
Okay.
They're living in 6 rooms. What is 6? The number of the devil, mark of the beast, right?
Okay.
So they're living in the 6 rooms, the 7th room being death. We are in this world belonging to the devil. We have to pass through that 7th room.
Now, if we were looking at that from that standpoint, if we are living in the 6 rooms, this is a group of people who are laughing in the face of death. They are indulging in hedonism.
They are reveling in this world.
They're reveling in the world. So this could have a bit of an apocalyptic read to it.
Oh, I think it definitely does, especially when you look at things on the level of this being a plague, right? Okay. We never knew during these days when that next plague was going to hit and be the Black Plague, right?
Very true.
And I think there's something to be said. Look, you've also got... The big one was the Black Plague,
yes.
Right? Everybody knows the Black Plague. The Black Room has red windows. This is the Masque of the Red Death. So they are linking the two through those colors in that death, okay. Right?
I'm going to actually have to do a series on how to read when talking to Adrian, There are certain things you have to note because Adrian is probably going to say something.
And even if he doesn't and you bring them up, I'll go ahead and say something anyway.
And here's the thing. It's not just that you note them, but you have to be prepared because he will say, what does this mean to you? And you'll be like, I didn't even read this paragraph. I just skimmed it.
If we ever get to the point where you say I didn't read this paragraph, there will be another of my serial slappings happen on the channel.
Oh my! Do you have anything else you really want to talk about in this piece? I really don't have much more to this.
I don't have anything in particular, but I think that so you said that you didn't like the piece.
Yes.
Adding the image of the 6 rooms where 7 you're capable of going into 7.
Okay.
Adding the element of this not being necessarily a plague, but just death in general. Adding some of the other things that we have talked about today. Does that raise this story in your estimation?
I refuse to raise it based on what you tell me.
I'm
going to stick with my numbers on this.
At this point, you're just getting facetious because every other time prior to this, you know what? Yeah, I kind of like it a little bit more now. Okay. With these interpretations, I think there's something else there.
Today is not that day.
Today is not.
Now, I will say, if you are going to look at a work from Poe, The Masque of the Red Death is probably a good one to look towards. Obviously, everyone knows The Raven, but this seems to be one of the big ones, along with Telltale Heart, Fall of the House of Usher. But there is a lot going on here.
Okay, so you said you didn't... Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have...
No. It's just more so, if you also read it, considering the time period, this would have been a very radical, different read.
Yeah. Reading other writers from this time period, I'm often struck by Poe because...
He had gusto.
But they're very direct sentences.
Okay.
There's not a lot of this flowery building things up that you get in some of this other writing. And it's all very understandable still today, right?
Yes, very much so.
So the language that is employed is not only direct, but precise.
Okay.
So you said you did not like this story that much. Can you point to any reasons why?
Nope. I refuse to say anything why. I'm not sure. And maybe this is, again... a lot of people get introduced to this very early on in their reading careers. I've probably dismissed this one for the last 10 years. Therefore, I feel...
Because I have dismissed this, I will dismiss this.
Yes, that might be the logic that I'm getting at here. I'm not sure. It seems... At the point of the arrival of the Red Death, you do get a good story going there. There's action, things are moving forward, things are happening, there's suspense, there's a lot of elements of horror mulling around here. But up until that, there seems to be a lot of build-up, and then the climax, and then it's over. There is...
Dalton, the thing's only 4 pages long.
That's what it is!
There's only 4 pages here.
But there's...
So how's there a lot of boring build-up?
There is 3 pages of build-up, and then boom, done. It's like a bottle rocket.
Okay.
You light the bottle rocket, you hold the bottle rocket, you throw it, and it goes, oh, it's pretty, boom, it's done.
Yeah. This goes into part of my critique, my 3 bad things about this. I think that from a modern literature perspective, this is fairly cut and dry.
Okay.
And because of that, and because I think Poe felt that, this is a very short piece,
okay.
Right? I think that this would stand to be much longer, so that we get to know Prospero, so that we get to know some of the guests, so that when the Masque of the Red Death does come, we don't just feel these themes that he has enumerated here, but we are struck by the gravity of what's going on as opposed to the brevity of what has happened.
Okay.
I like that turn of phrase. Did you see that there?
Look at you go. So, Adrian, in your never-ending praise, what would you rate this?
I would give this 88 delirious fancies out of 100.
Okay. I give this 84 colored rooms. So, not terribly lower than you. There is worth here, but just not for me. What would you suggest?
If you read this and you enjoyed this, I think that you need to spend some time with Hamlet.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of the themes and a lot of the settings and a lot of the... It feels... I don't know. It feels like a dime store Hamlet to me. You don't have a lot of the family stuff going on that you have there, but you're not going to in 4 pages anyway.
True.
So you've got a lot of the same emotions. You've got a lot of the same... I really don't know how to explain it, and I wish I knew how to explain it better. But you've got a lot of the same interesting type things going on, despite the fact that there's almost no overlap in what's happening. Right?
All right. I went the contemporary route with this one, and I would say you should read Horns by Joe Hill, Stephen King's son.
Right.
This one...
Which, the reason he changed his name to Joe Hill was that so people didn't say Stephen King's son. But every time anyone mentions Joe Hill, they say Stephen King's son.
But the man did make his name on his own. He didn't use his father's name in order to publish. This deals with, very much so that you can't control disease and you can't control being infected with it. A young man wakes up one day and he's basically the devil.
Oh, okay.
So, very interesting read, very dark. I think it would go well with this.
Okay.
So, that's what I got for this. Anything else you want to throw in there real quick?
That is all that I really have written down. That's all the notes that I have.
Good OctPOEber. Good OctPOEber.
Very good. I would like to note real quick, I'm sorry. There's this little parenthetical statement, which I thought was just stunning. And then, after the lapse of 60 minutes, which embraced 3,600 seconds of the time that flies. A little parenthetical statement by Poe. Just reminding us that, yes, you're dying.
Yes, I know what I'm talking about. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Give this video a like. We're doing a lot of Poe in October. I think we have The Raven coming next, don't we?
If you would like to follow us on social media, we are on Twitter @StrippedCover and on Facebook @StrippedCoverLit.